kid on the block.
Yeah, so while the move from Rug Delver to Blue-White Red Delver was largely a reaction to cards like Scavenging Ooze and Deathrite Shaman being really good against Rug Delver. However, when you were playing in this like the mirror match, how does the color change affect it?
Well, Tarmogoyf is really big, and Nimble Mongoose is hard to kill. Geist Entrapped being a little more expensive is also
getting to 3 mana and casting, having something resolve past days at 3 mana is just
very difficult to do.
Right, and then Rug's on the Rug's on the play.
Oof. So and that is absolutely vital in these matchups.
So you're saying is that Wilson's a favorite in this one?
I would say a pretty big favorite, yeah. But, you know, Swords to Plowshares is certainly a powerful card, and you can always have, you know, the Stifle Daze draw and punish the fragile mana base of the Rug Delver as well.
All right, so Jacob's going to go ahead and start with a fetch for Tropical Island. He has no effects with it. That would show that he's either going to try to Brainstorm or just is playing around Stifle.
Likely playing around Stifle. That first mana, too important. Can't get it... You can get it Wastelanded, but you can't get it Stifled.
And then Jacob's going to go ahead and cast a turn 2 Delver of Secrets. And right now, Joshua Ravitz not really showing his hand as to what deck he's playing yet. So he's gained a little bit of information here, as Jacob's pretty much declared that he's on Rug Delver. It's, I think, the only deck that plays Tropical and Delver.
Into Delver, yep. And now, Joshua Ravitz has to decide whether Delver is where he wants to pick his fight.
Yeah, he does have a Force of Will in hand. He chooses not to play it on Delver of Secrets. Instead, he makes a second land. This is going to be a Tundra. Fetches with an extra mana up, and now he'll get to make his threat on the board.
It looks like Jacob Wilson is fetching a response, either to play around Stifle or to stifle Josh.
Right, and we see...
Gets the Volcanic Island. Picked up his hand like he's stifling. Yep, there we go.
Alright, so we're going to go ahead and, see a Stifle on that fetch land. And that Stifle's going to get Force of Will. Josh is aggressively protecting his mana on the matchup.
Yeah.
If you look at his hand, he actually has a Geist Entrapped and a Vendilion Click. Now down the Geist as he pitches to Force of Will. But it seems like getting to 3 mana is very important for him in this matchup.
Absolutely. Developing your mana base, especially against a deck with a bunch of Daze and Spell Pierce-like effects, you really need to be able to cast your spells and cast them through such effects. So that second land's all too important. Josh not willing to give it up.
Yeah, so both players, it looks like, have right now been able to get all 3 of their colors online without getting Wastelanded. So it seems like they'll be able to play their spells, which might favor the Blue-White-Red deck as it has more expensive spells.
I would agree with that. I think that, you know, stuff like Stoneforge Mystic going to be a little higher impact than things like Nimble Mongoose in this early game.
And Joshua playing pretty safe here. He opts to bolt the Delver with Daze mana up instead of going for Stoneforge Mystic.
Yep. Wise, patient.
Yeah, it seems to me as long as he keeps the board clear, his larger threats should be able to take the game.
Agreed. You know, Josh can Swords to Plowshares any Tarmogoyfs, but a Stoneforge Mystic is going to come with a 2-for-1.
All right, and so one of those Tarmogoyfs does hit the battlefield for Jacob. In his hand, he still has a Ponder, a Brainstorm, and a second Tarmogoyf.
Josh is going to brainstorm a response here.
So possibly trying to force the Tarmogoyf?
Yeah, it appears so, but does not hit.
Yeah, so Josh's hand full of a lot of heavier hits. He puts back a Batterskull and a Vendilion Click.
Draw the Vendilion Click and then Stoneforge Mystic the Batterskull.
Yeah, so his hand has 2 bolts and 2 Stoneforges in it. I think he was really hoping to hit a land on that, which he didn't, and he did not. So if he doesn't resolve this Stoneforge, he's going to have to redraw both these cards, which for sure he doesn't want the Batterskull in his hand.
Absolutely. That would be a wasted draw step.
All right, and I believe he stacked it so that he draws Batterskull this turn as opposed to drawing Vendilion Click. Okay, he did actually have the 3rd land.
All right.
There's an additional card there. So Stoneforge Mystic will be cast by Joshua Ravitz with the Daze mana up. So the idea there, let's talk about why he would put Batterskull in his hand as opposed to, why he'd choose to draw the Batterskull as opposed to drawing the Vendilion Cliff.
Well, there's two things that could be going on. One, he thinks that, one of his Stoneforge Mystics is going to get Force of Willed and wants both equipments in his hand. Another thing is he could get one Stifled, the Search Stifled, and still have the Batterskull in his hand, ready to go.
We might see.
It's possible he just wants both equipments, He thinks that they're going to be good in the game as it goes forward.
All right, so Jacob, with the Stoneforge on the stack, is going to go find a tropical island. We're probably going to see that Brainstorm in his hand fired off here. Looks like he is not keen on having Stoneforge resolve when both players are still at such a high life total.
Yeah, rightfully so. It's a very powerful effect and huge impact on the board, if allowed. He has that Ponder as backup, so he's not, fully Brainstorm locked if he misses here. It's not a big deal.
So he sees Spell Pierce, another Brainstorm, and
Fetch
looks
land.
like a Scalding Tarn.
Yep.
So he's going to draw the Tarn for next turn and probably shuffle away one of the cards.
Yeah, Spell Pierce, the card it looks like he's putting back.
Yeah, I don't think there's much left to Spell Pierce here. You can Spell Pierce the 1-mana cantrips, but unfortunately with cards like Batterskull, they're going to be put into play with Stoneforge Mystic, so it doesn't seem like Spell Pierce is live anymore.
Yeah, I would agree. It looks like Jacob Wilson agrees as well, though he is considering stacking them the other way. We'll see how he stacked it in a minute. And Stoneforge Mystic resolves. So Ravit's now going to find the other piece of equipment, Umezawa's Jite.
Yeah, and I always like that kind of bait and switch aspect of Stoneforge Mystic when you search out a Jite and then you pass and they say end step, and you're like, all right, end step, I'll make Batterskull.
Yep.
Like, oh, hey.
Wait a minute. Check their notes, see if they misread it.
All right, so Jacob does draw that Scalding Tarn. That's going to allow him to shuffle away to get a new deck to ponder off of. But in the main, he doesn't have very many ways to interact with Umezawa's Jite. It's likely that he's looking for Lightning Bolt or some way to remove Stoneforge Mystic as opposed to removing the Jite.
Yep. Get Tarmogoyf on board and then, just enough control to push lethal. That is the plan.
So Jacob's going to lead off on Brainstorm as opposed to leading off on Ponder here.
Interesting choice. Ponder represents a shuffle effect in and of itself, so...
And he did find Lightning Bolt. So it looks like he's going to be able... He's not going to be able to play that Wasteland this turn, but he's going to be able to take care of Stoneforge Mystic to keep this race going in his favor.
Yep.
At this point, is it fair to say Jacob's the aggro deck at this point and Josh is playing the control game?
I would say that's true. I mean, the individual card quality in Josh's deck is much higher. Source the Plowshares and Stoneforge Mystic and even Guys the Saint Draft, a lot more powerful. But Jacob doing a pretty good job of playing the tempo aggro game here.
So he swings with Tarmogoyf to see if there will be a chump block. When the chump block is denied, he goes ahead and bolts the Stoneforge Mystic to increase his Tarmogoyf to put Josh Ravitz down to 14.
And has a follow-up Nimble Mongoose, which is...
I don't know if it's thresholded yet, but it's close. So that bluff on the equipment's up now. Josh plays Stoneforge Mystic, does not search.
Yep.
And Jacob Wilson comes crashing in with the 4/5 Tarmogoyf and Nimble Mongoose. And now he's going to continue to go on the board with a second Tarmogoyf.
And the Wasteland on the white source.
So now Josh is not going to, unless he draws a white, he'll be unable to put that Batterskull into play. He does not, and that should be the game here.
Yeah, he would need to have to Brainstorm into white source plow, shuffle away, draw another plow.
We confirm Jacob was threshold there. That put him down to 7, so it's a lethal attack, as any two of those attackers will drop Josh to 0, and Wilson up 1 game to 0.
Yep, I mean, all according to plan for Jacob. On the play, was able to gain a slight tempo advantage and then ride it out. He was even up cards because of Force of Will on a Stifle that Ravitz needs to protect his land to not fall too far behind. and that's one way to generate an advantage in these matchups. You don't have to necessarily get your tempo advantage, but threaten the tempo advantage and get the card advantage that way.
Yeah. So typically in the Rug Delver mirrors, there was one of the most important cards in it was Submerge. Because Josh Ravitz isn't playing Forests, he will have access post-board to Submerges, whereas Jacob will not.
Correct. And in a similar vein, Swords to Plowshares, quite a good effect against 2/3 of Jacob Wilson's creatures.
Right. So when you look at Joshua's sideboard, he does have access then to Submerge and an extra Swords, and 2 Red Blasts, which are usually used in the matchup.
Yeah, those are not bad. Relic's actually quite good. Relic of Progenitus is
very good against Rug Delver.
Yeah, it's a card that is, Relic and Rest in Peace are like 2 of the bigger reasons to be playing the blue-white-red Delver version rather than the Rug Delver version, because you are so reliant on your graveyard that Relic it does some nasty stuff. I mean, you can put a damage on a Tarmogoyf, block with a Stoneforge Mystic or Lightning Bolt it, and then crack your Relic, and it is now an 0/1 with damage on it and is instantly killed.
Yeah, so certainly it looks like the matchup gets better for Joshua post-board. Jacob has the usual suspects for his board cards. He has 3 Submerges, but he can't use them. He does have 2 Pyroblasts, which will almost certainly see him use. He does have 2 Rough Tumbles, which, because Josh is playing cards like Geist of St. Traft, Geist of St. Traft and Grim Lavamancer, we might see them use Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah, Rough Tumble, probably a good choice here.
Yeah, how good is Vendilion Click in the matchup? That's one of the more interesting choices.
I would say pretty bad. It's a 3-mana card that just gets, bolted. It theoretically trades with a Nimble Mongoose, but it's pretty expensive, pretty slow, and then just is too easy to answer, I would say.
We saw one drawn by Joshua game 1, and he actually eventually brainstormed it to the top and shuffled it away with a Stoneforge. He never cast it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if from Jacob's side there's any upside to the fact that Vendilion Click is very good against a Stoneforge Mystic that would maybe make him want to play the card.
Yeah, I mean, Vendilion Click is a lot better against Josh's deck than it is against Jacob Wilson's deck. It is certainly good against Stoneforge Mystic, as you said, and since Jacob Wilson's gonna have to be the one seizing initiative and being the driving force of the tempo of the game, I think Vendilion Click fits more into that game plan than it does into Josh Ravitz, which is survive and then get some 2-for-1s or play more powerful spells and win that way.
All right, so for this game, Josh was going to be on the play.
Which is huge.
Yeah. And I guess, how does that change how you play the game? We saw that in that last game, Joshua really played the control role from turn 1.
Yeah.
He never really tapped out for a spell. He never let himself get dazed. He just made land drops and played very cheap removal early on. Now, is that the route you want to be taking on the draw? Because he just can't be as aggressive.
Yeah, you're kind of forced out of any aggression being on the draw because it's so important to establish your mana base and so difficult to do so on the draw. But on the play, you can definitely seize initiative if you have an early start.
All right, so we are underway. Joshua Ravitz is on the play. He starts with the Volcanic Island, but he does not have a 1-drop play as of yet. We will see the hand that he kept. Will he go that control role again, or will he be more aggressive? Right now, he's deciding whether or not to Spell Pierce the Gitaxian Probe.
I actually wouldn't mind Spell Piercing it here. Your mana is going to be choked. You're going to want to curve out somewhat. If you're planning out your next couple turns and you're not going to have the mana up to Spell Pierce, then it's just going to become dead later on.
So he has a pair of Stifles, a Daze, a Spell Pierce, a Swords to Plowshares, and a Arid Mesa. So actually he's kept a hand with completely reactive spells and no threats.
Yeah, an interesting keep. And definitely a hand that is a little light to a probe. Once you have the information of what's there, it becomes a lot easier to play around it all.
Well, so it's going to be very hard for Jacob, though, to resolve anything. If you recall his hand, it's a Daze and 2 Stifles and a Swords.
Along with a Spell Pierce and a Mesa.
Right, so like right here, we see Delver of Secrets made by Jacob. That can't be stifled, it can be dazed, it can be swords. It is not dazed. We will see what the reaction is from Josh Ravitz. He makes Arid Mesa, and
I would imagine this gets plowed immediately.
Yep.
Go farming, kid.
Yeah, so he goes ahead and grabs Tundra.
No more of your experiments. Go hit the fields. Yeah, Ravitz is going to have to... He actually drew a Polluted Delta for the turn. So, I mean, he's going to have to draw, like, the ideal draw is Brainstorm.
Right? Just to get rid of some of these stifles?
Yeah, get rid of some of these redundant cards and these cards that are too easy for Jacob to play around. And shuffle them away with the Polluted Delta, get into more action, more card draw, and threats.
Yeah, so there's good and bad news for Jacob here. He does have a lot of lands, which is great against a stifle heavy draw. The bad news is that I believe they're all, if not all, almost all, if not all, fetch lands. So he's going to provide targets for Josh to stifle.
Yep. The way that you play through this situation, well, Jacob's just gonna, raw dog it. Go ahead.
Are you gonna say that you just play out the fetches?
Just play out all your fetches, and then you can crack them all on one turn, where you can choke Josh's mana, because he's going to have to stifle, and then he won't be able to spell pierce or what have you.
So Jacob is going to daze the stifle. Yep. He's floating a blue mana. Josh had the option of dazing back, but he does not. So Jacob will get a land. Remember, he has one blue floating at the moment, so he actually will have access to... He can play a 1-drop and make it daze-proof at the moment.
Yeah.
And he's going to tap the Tropical Island for green, casting Nimble Mongoose with 1 in his mana pool. And this one looks like it's going to stick.
Yep, going to resolve, and it's going to be hard to deal with once it resolves as well.
Yeah, I really like how Jacob navigated the stifle there.
Yeah, absolutely. Very
and
well played.
Yeah, that and the daze. So now Jacob has a threat down. His graveyard is only 3 cards at the moment.
Gets you for 1.
Yeah, so he swings in front. He has a threat down. It's not big yet. He plays, so he has makes a volcanic island for the turn, but he has no more plays.
Yeah, he does have a Tarmogoyf in his hand, but doesn't want to run it into that daze.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Joshua Ravitz just drawing all fetch lands.
Yeah, he's drawn another fetch land, so he's up to 5 lands, which is really more than the blue, white, red, than any Delver deck really wants to draw.
Yeah.
You see Jacob kind of recognizing that as the land he left up was a volcanic island and not a wasteland.
Yep.
When he made a Tarmogoyf here.
So relic drawn for Ravitz is definitely not bad.
Yeah, so the question I think would be how early he uses the relic. I know he'd like to draw a card here, but does he wait until the Mongoose is closer to threshold before burning it?
Yeah, even more than that, I think it's a matter of getting a damage on the Tarmogoyf. I think that you're going to have to use the relic as a removal spell.
So you want to kill the Tarmogoyf with the relic?
Yeah, I think that's your best path to victory here. If you just use it, to draw a card at a random point, then the Tarmogoyf just starts growing again, and you're back in trouble right where you were.
So picking a line like that gives a lot of respect to Tarmogoyf in the matchup.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a huge threat, and it's the one that grows the fastest after a relic activation. Nimble Mongoose takes a little while to get back to threshold, but Tarmogoyf can become 2 or 3 power almost instantly.
All right, so we see the relic from Ravitz. And he's just going to play the relic past the turn. Remember, he still has a Daze, a Stifle, and a Spell Pierce in hand, but he has no threat of his own just yet.
Yeah. So this is the decision point. All right, he does decide to just take it. Gonna save the relic. I like this line. You're gonna have to take a little damage in the meantime, but I think it's the more conservative card economy type of play.
Yeah, and that'll drop Josh down to 12, so he still has a lot of time, and he's actually going to now, post-combat, sacrifice the Relic of Progenitus.
Interesting. I'm not sure what changed where he wanted to do that after. I guess he just wanted to hit any random ponders that Jacob Wilson was going to play second main.
So he really wants to... That makes sense. He really wants to empty the graveyards as much as possible. And the draw off the relic for him was a Delver of Secrets, and then his draw for the turn was a Ponder. So suddenly Josh Ravitz's hand of all control cards is looking to get a little aggressive here.
Yeah. Ponder's gonna have to find a removal spell here for the Tarmogoyf. I would think that is step 1, and then getting the Delver online is phase 2.
Yeah. Well, with his top 3, he has found what looks like, I believe, a Rest in Peace.
Interesting.
Coupled with a Spell Pierce and a land.
Well, Rest in Peace is obviously ideal here. I mean, the Nimble Mongoose is now a permanent 1/1, and the Tarmogoyf is an 0/1 for as long as that is the case.
And he's going to make Delver of Secrets this turn. And we'll see if he cracks a fetch land to cast the Rest in Peace. There's not much of a threat right now.
Yeah, I think you can take one more hit. Not really scared of, what is that? 3 damage, probably?
Yeah. So Jacob's going to go ahead and waste the Tundra. This grows his own Tarmogoyf by adding lands to the graveyard.
Yep.
Josh debates whether to stifle it, and that will get the stifle.
So Tarmogoyf's actually going to hit for even one more now.
Yep, he moves all up to a 3.
Vendilion Click in Jacob Wilson's hand. It is going to get dazed, but that would be a pretty sick line if you were able to snag that Rest in Peace before it hit the table.
Well, Jacob actually hasn't played a land yet for the turn. Remember, that Wasteland was already in play, and he does not go for the main phase V-Click.
That would have been really scary for Josh if Vendilion Click, a daze-proof Vendilion Click came down there.
Yeah, and I think, I'm not sure Jacob is expecting a Rest in Peace.
Especially after seeing Relic.
Right, you'd assume that was the hate spell.
Yeah, that he would have multiple Relics rather than a split, which is one of the advantages of splitting.
So we see Tarmogoyf hitting. Jacob really protecting his own Nimble Mongoose there, does not want to trade it with the Delver.
Little does he know how useless that Mongoose is going to be pretty soon.
Yeah, so it puts Ravitz down to 9, and then Jacob follows up with another Nimble Mongoose.
All of the ones.
And a Delver of Secrets, so just the whole team. And Josh now is going to crack a fetch land at the end of the turn. Remember, the top card of his deck was a land, so it was not going to flip the Delver.
Right. That is something that you can do if your top card is a spell, but you don't want to draw it, you can reveal it to the Delver and then crack your fetch, get rid of it, and flip your guy, but I think it was like a land and a creature or something like that.
Yeah, it was a land and a Spell Pierce actually was the top
Really?
top cards of the deck. I don't believe he put the Spell Pierce on top though. I think he sequenced it the land first.
Okay, well
So
that is certainly a misstep then, but not punished, gets to flip his Delver anyway, and if he doesn't want that stifle, he can actually crack that polluted Delta. Jacob Wilson going to crack his fetch.
Yeah, now he knows that a stifle could be coming.
Yes.
He's going to crack his fetch immediately. And Jacob building his way toward Threshold again. He now has 3 cards in the graveyard.
Very likely about to be 0.
Very possibly about to be 0. And now Josh has to assume here that Delver of Secrets is going to flip next turn. If you remember, Jacob brainstormed before casting it.
Well, that's one of the things about cracking that fetch there is he no longer has that information available to him. Jacob doesn't. So Josh does choose. He does not want to draw that stifle. Ends up cracking the fetch.
Right. Yeah. So by flipping that stifle there, he did deny Jacob the free 3/2.
Yes. And by waiting, even though it was a chance that he didn't flip his Delver, he also got one more free loot, one more free scry.
How crazy is that? So his draw for the turn, the draw from the turn from Ravitz was a Lightning Bolt. And
wow.
Now we'll see Rest in Peace. It's going to really take care of Jacob's board. So Tarmogoyf down to being a 0/1. Nimble Mongoose are both 1/1s. And Josh has an answer for the Delver of Secrets.
That's a pretty good turn. Flip your Delver, scry 1. Rest in Peace, bolt the Delver.
Yeah, no, it's a great turn.
Flip the Delver.
The thing is, Jacob's creatures now, and these are the only 3 creatures he plays in his deck. Well, these and the one Vendilion Click in his hand. Jacob's creatures are going to be really hard. Like, they aren't going to be able to get through this anymore, so he's going to have to win the game with cards like Lightning Bolt.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 hit from Vendilion Click.
Yep. Vendilion Click is, well, you can... If Josh doesn't have anything left, you can price him into trading with the Vendilion Click, and then your 1/1s can roam free. So it's just a race of whether Josh can draw either a removal spell for the Vendilion Click or a creature to block the Nimble Mongoose. before Jacob Wilson can do enough damage that his lightning bolts can finish him off.
All right, so for the turn, Jacob's going to make Scalding Tarn, and he has no plays, passes back, and during draw step, he's going to Vendilion Click Josh Ravitz,
and he just hit a Stoneforge.
He's going to hit a Stoneforge with it. Where Josh has Daze and Spell Pierce left. Those are both from the beginning of the game.
Yeah, just been rotting in his hand all game. Really wants to get rid of those with a Brainstorm.
Jacob easily takes the Stoneforge Mystic.
Jacob takes the Mystic, but Josh...
And Josh draws a Mystic.
Look at that.
That's one of those situations that when you're Jacob Wilson, just,
but I just took...
that.
And that's perfect, because now the Delver can trade off for the Vendilion Click, no problem. The Stoneforge Mystic holding off the Nimble Mongooses, and Batterskull ready to come down, gain the life back, get him out of burn range.
Yeah, it's really that Batterskull that's putting pressure on Jacob now.
Yep.
He's got about 2 turns until that Batterskull takes over. You see there he has a Daze, a Delver of Secrets, and a Rough Tumble is the 3 cards he's looking at with the Ponder.
Awkward Rough Tumble here.
Yeah.
Does deal with the Stoneforge Mystic, but it also takes out the 2 Nimble Mongoose. And
you said you never cast Tumble. He actually almost could cast Tumble here.
Yeah, he is very close to it.
So Daze a card he doesn't want. Rough Tumble is only okay. I don't know if he's going to keep this.
Yeah, I have to think that this is a shuffle.
Delver, having a second Delver is a great card. It depends on the card in his hand, though. He needs to find lightning bolts fairly quickly.
Yeah, a Wear Tear, something that he can use to push through some damage. I would think you have to shuffle just because, like, killing the Delver and getting your Vendilion in is like your most likely path to victory here.
Yeah, he would love to find a card like that, like Ancient Grudge, I suppose, that would take care of the Batterskull.
Yeah. Looks like he is going to keep it and draw Delver.
So he's gonna, yeah, and he knows that Delver is going to flip next turn.
It looked like his other card was Brainstorm, so you can actually crack his fetch, Brainstorm here, look for that removal spell, and put a spell on top to flip Delver the next turn. But it looks like he's not going to do that. It looks like he's just going to attack and play his Delver.
So he's going to start to offer the trade for Vendilion Click for Delver, which will certainly be accepted by Josh.
All right.
And then another Delver to replace the one to replace the Flyer is played by Jacob. And now he's got to win quick. We know that he knows that there's a Batterskull waiting in the wings.
Wow, red Elemental Blast there for Josh.
Yeah. Jacob keeps the Rough Tumble. Josh just untapped, drew a card, and shipped the turn back.
And the card he drew is...
It's very good here. It takes Jacob's pressure off the board yet again.
Yep, it is the removal spell that he needed for this Insectile Aberration, which is the only thing that can get through this Stoneforge Mystic / Batterskull.
Yeah, so despite being on the draw this game, we're seeing, once again, Jacob Wilson is falling into the aggro role, whereas Ravitz is kind of the control role in this game. Yep. You know, he's just answering threats until he can buy time for Batterskull.
Yep, the more expensive, more powerful cards, and versus the more aggressively costed creatures. You know, a 1-mana 3/3 versus a 2-mana 1/2.
All right, so Jacob tries to Brainstorm. We will see if Ravitz lets that resolve. He does know the final card in Wilson's hand, so I'm guessing he's going to start by putting the Batterskull into play.
Yep. Want to do that before Jacob Wilson brainstorms into another Vendilion Click, although we know that he only has the one.
And then it is going to get red blasted. I think he has to do that off red mana, though. He tapped a Tundra for that one, so we'll get a correction on that.
Yep. And so now the brainstorm can resolve, and we are at a parity with there's no more pressure in the air from Jacob, so now Batterskull is king of the castle.
Yeah, so we see that Rough Tumble. It may have been a little bit of a misstep by Jacob. We'll see what happened. That Rough Tumble that was in his hand, he had chose to draw it, is now actually it's not very powerful for him at this moment.
Right. Well, that's one of the things I was wondering about when he chose to draw it, and it looks like a
Jace the Mind Sculptor was boarded in here.
Well, that is
an
good.
aggressive card to board in this matchup.
It is. Well, if you think that the game's going to go long like this, I mean, if the game is so fast that Jace isn't good, then Jacob's probably favored. And if the game goes long, where like Ravitz wants it to, then Jace is going to be good.
All right, so the life total now going up for Ravitz. Hits with the Batterskull, takes out the 0-1 Tarmogoyf, and now it's 17-11. Jacob's going to have to regain control of this board as opposed to racing.
Yes. And with a hand that he knows contains Daze and a Spell Pierce, Jace likely not going to be able to resolve this game.
Yeah, I think Jacob really is waiting for, or trying to find an Ancient Grudge here.
Yeah.
But thanks to Rest in Peace, Ancient Grudge is not going to be able to take out the Batterskull.
Yep, especially with Josh having enough mana to bounce and put into play with Stoneforge Mystic.
Right, so traditionally the reason Ancient Grudge can kill Batterskull is that you can... No, actually, sorry, you can't flush it back, so it's really bad at getting Batterskull.
Yeah, it just stops it for 2 turns and ties up their mana.
Time.
Yep. Josh's life total climbing up here, gonna brainstorm, get a little deeper.
Alright, so draws Swords to Plowshares, another Swords to Plowshares, and a Polluted Delta.
Looks like he's actually thinking about getting rid of those soft counters, which would actually get Jacob a chance in this game. Give him an opportunity to land that Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Well, if I'm Josh Ravitz, I probably do not expect Jace the Mind Sculptor here.
Right. I agree completely. And it looks like he did get rid of those soft counters.
So he keeps the Delta. You see another Rough Tumble drawn for Jacob, which might actually be okay here. Now he can kill the Germ Token.
True.
The problem is that in response to the second Rough Tumble, if Jacob casts both of them, Josh can pay 5 and recast the Batterskull and with a new Germ without any damage on it.
Right, so Alright, Josh doesn't activate Stoneforge.
Doesn't activate Stoneforge there.
Yep.
I guess he could. Yeah, so there's no way to do it in response. I guess
you activate the Stoneforge in response to the first one. So it would just be if the Germ has no damage on it instead of 2.
Right.
But with only a green up, there's no Oxidize he has to worry about here, so he can bounce it and then untap and recast it fairly safely. Looks like Jacob Wilson's gonna be looking to stifle the Germ trigger, or no, rather he can just untap play Jace and bounce it. He's gonna have to hope that Ravitz shuffle away those soft counters with that Brainstorm fetch, which we know he did.
Right, so on Josh's side, we're just gonna see a recast. Well, first we see a Wasteland on Tropical Island. Jacob floats a blue mana, and then a recast of Batterskull.
All right.
And
cross your
slam
fingers.
Jace. Does it work? And Josh, having gotten rid of both Daze and Spell Pierce, this is going to work. We'll see Jace unsummon the Germ Token, and suddenly, Jacob, there is hope for Jacob Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, we're now at basically a Jace versus an empty board.
And that usually does favor the Jace.
Yes, Jace is very good at winning exactly that game.
Wow, and Jacob possibly back in this.
Looks like a Ponder, so...
All right, so a lot of action here. That Josh is going to have to find a lot of action quickly. We see 2 Delvers and a Spell Pierce. That will count as a fair amount of action.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. So you can play a Delver, bounce Batterskull.
Yeah, it's actually... So yeah, he can bounce the Batterskull to rebuy for a Germ Token. There's also the possibility that Josh just starts trying to equip the Batterskull to Delvers.
Right.
Because then, as opposed to bouncing it, because that way... every creature that Josh plays can kill Jace in one attack.
Right, that makes sense.
So Jacob will just have to answer, every single Delver that's
I have to think that Jace is likely going to bounce one more time, in which case Ravitz would much rather, he plays his Delver, the Batterskull, if the Delver gets bounced, then the Batterskull gets bounced, and then his next turn is, Batterskull Delver.
Right. Let's see what he can do. A Stifle. actually a decent draw here.
Yeah,
so you can stifle a Germ Token or an Equip from Batterskull.
All right, he is brainstorming. It is aggressive. I think I would have bounced one more turn, but Jacob gonna...
Well, I like the play. I think the Stifle in hand lets him protect... That will protect the Jace for at least one more turn.
Sure.
And he's furiously digging here. So he brainstorms, puts back, cracks a fetch land, and now he's going to ponder on a new deck. We see a Nimble Mongoose, I believe a Delver of Secrets, and a Wasteland. So creatures, which is exactly what he's looking for.
That's what he thinks he's looking for, but we know that Josh Ravitz has 2 Swords to Plowshares in his hand, so only the Nimble Mongoose would get to stick around.
Right, so he's actually going to go ahead and shuffle there. So
all right.
We'll see what I'm curious what he is looking for right now.
Probably a more permanent answer to the Batterskull.
So he's looking for that one of Ancient Grudge.
Yeah. Or maybe, you know, a kill spell for the Delver.
Yeah, he does play 1 Fire Ice in addition to the 4 Lightning Bolts.
So you have to stifle the Delver trigger here?
He is going to have to stifle the Delver
looks like
trigger.
he is.
Now,
Ravitz
had
gonna
Josh
shuffle away that Spell Pierce.
had Ravitz left the Batterskull in play, he would be able to equip it to Delver of Secrets here.
Correct. But, you know, you have to think, what's more likely? My Delver of Secrets trigger getting stifled and the game progressing from there unfavorably, or, you know, my Delver getting bolted when I go to equip it, which would be a huge blow.
Yeah, he has strong enough plays that tapping 5 to equip is probably not something he does this turn.
All right, attack Jace down to 1. And it looks like his turn is going to be Batterskull Delver here.
Yeah, and this is going to be hard for Jacob to control. He just doesn't have cards in his deck that are good at doing this.
Yeah.
See another brainstorm. This time it finds Tarmogoyf and Ponder and a land.
An 0-1 Tarmogoyf. Not exactly what he's looking for.
So Jacob puts back 2 lands, plays a 3rd land as a fetch, and cracks it to reset his deck. He now has a Tarmogoyf, a Daze, and a Ponder. And he'll get to see at least 3 more cards.
Ponder.
The question is, what is he looking for? Okay, so he has Fire Ice here.
That's a pretty good one.
It's a good one. So he's got a lot of cards that help him control the game right now, but, you know, what's the end game plan here?
That I couldn't tell you, but it starts with killing those 2 and then playing a chump blocker to protect Jace for another turn.
All right, and unfortunately for Jacob, Josh does have the swords for the Tarmogoyf, which is going to happen. Jace goes down. Now Jacob left with nothing but a Daze and a top deck full of cards that he, well, starting with a Ponder.
All right.
Let's see if he can find something else.
The redraws. All right, we're done.
There's just nothing left in his deck to deal with that.
Yeah, Batterskull with a billion mana up. Too much for Jacob Wilson to deal with. Even though he did sculpt that game pretty awesomely with that Jace.
Yeah, he was able. I think the Jace really caught Josh by surprise.
Absolutely.
You know, he just shipped a Daze and a Spell Pierce and shuffled them away, thinking they were dead in the matchup. It gave Jacob a lot of extra game, but it turned out in his deck he just didn't have cards that mattered. He didn't have a way to answer what was going on.
What was a bigger surprise to the opponent? The Jace from Jacob or the Rest in Peace from Josh?
Well, yeah, certainly there was a chance where Jacob could have stopped the Rest in Peace if he knew it was coming. He had enough mana to Vendilion Click that turn.
Playing through a Relic is one thing, but Rest in Peace is just like shutdown mode.
Right, Rest in Peace makes almost all of Jacob's creatures. It makes the Delver of Secrets really the only relevant creature.
Right. Which is not a good place to be. Then you're leaning real hard on your 1 Vendilion Click and your 1 Jace to kill him.
The problem is that the blue-white-red Delver deck has 4 Lightning Bolts and 3 Swords to Plowshares. 4 Swords post-board, so it has a lot of ways to deal with Delver.
Yes. Not to mention blocking with its own Delver, and the Submerge, and dazing it, and so on. Yeah, a landed Rest in Peace is rough times for the Rug Delver deck. So for 2 sort of tempo-y aggro decks, we've had 2 fairly long games, only about 11.5 minutes left going into this game 3. Jacob Wilson back on the play. We've talked over and over about how important that is for these Stifle Wasteland decks, especially in the Stifle Wasteland mirror.
Right, we said Jacob has been the aggressor in both these games so far. Being on the play will certainly help him.
So let's see if he can get the aggressive start that he needs, the right curve, the right mana denial package, or whether Joshua can stave off the early beats and play his more powerful spells as we enter the mid-game.
So Jacob actually doesn't have an answer for a resolved Rest in Peace in his 75. He's really, his only play here is to hope that he can counter it when it comes down.
Yep. Bindling, click it away. Already be so far ahead that, you know, your 1/1 Nimble Mongoose are enough.
And you get to see who he's playing against, and we see Ravitz with a serious control hand. It only has 1 land, but it has 6 1-mana spells, so 4 kill spells with Red Blast, Lightning Bolt, Swords, and Swords. It has a Brainstorm and a Stifle. Josh ready to try to shut down whatever it is that Jacob's doing.
If Jacob had a Stifle here, that would be near game over, but he does not, so he's just going to get on board with the Delver of Secrets.
And Joshua draws another Stifle. So pretty short on lands.
It's hard, right? Because you want to be able to kill this Delver, but if you spend your 1 use of the land and then it gets wastelanded on a way to kill the Delver and not the Brainstorm, then you're just living off the top of your deck.
Yeah, well, there's kind of a dilemma here for Josh, right? He can either get stifled or he can get wastelanded. So
right.
He either fetches or doesn't fetch.
I think you have to fetch. I think you have to cast something this turn.
Yeah, it's dangerous because the turn 1 play from Jacob certainly suggests that he doesn't have the stifle.
Right.
So but he knows nothing about Wasteland. If you're Josh, though, do you go for the Lightning Bolt here, the Red Blast, or the Brainstorm?
That is the question, and I want to say it's removal, and you have to hold your breath. You don't want to get yourself Brainstorm locked. You still have a bunch of 1-mana spells. You know, any land is good at that point. Plus, we know, or you know, with a good degree of likelihood that Jacob does not have a Stifle in his hand.
And so Brainstorm for Ravitz, does Jacob does not have the days, and it's no lands for Ravitz.
He hits a Ponder, so he has some redraws here, but that is absolutely brutal. This is the infamous Brainstorm lock.
All right, so a Stifle off the top for Jacob will flip Delver of Secrets into Insectile Aberration, and this is a green light to put pressure on. Jacob's going to see that Josh bricked on the land, and if you're a Delver player, you just smell the blood in the water on this one.
Absolutely.
It looks like Jacob has the Wasteland for the Volcanic Island.
Oh no.
And yeah, this is, and the thing is that Jacob knows if this is the case, he knows that the top 2 cards are no help. That this Wasteland is just going to be stuck on lands for turns to come here.
Yep. Brainstorm locked while facing down flipped Delver.
All right, so
he does leave up Stifle just in case Ravitz got tricky and left a fetch land on top. But to no avail.
It's at least 2 turns of discarding for Joshua.
Yes.
And another Delver joins the team for Jacob, and this could be over quick. Remember, Josh, if he wants to draw land, has to draw. I was gonna say has to draw not a fetch land because Jacob has 2 Stifles for it, but I'm not sure Josh has enough life points to make it matter. Jacob flips the second Delver off a Lightning Bolt, and that will be it. 2 games to 1. Jacob snowballs in game 3.
Yeah, that is the God draw. That is exactly what this Rogue Delver deck does. It absolutely punishes